What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. And in this video, we've got the last video in my regular coverage of Chaos Return format. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that it's generally a tradition of mine for the last video in a given format to just, show off something for those FTK degenerates out there who want to see, what decks are sort of available in the format for this sort of degenerate strategy. Now, I will say the new cards added into Chaos Return format, which the format held around August 2006 in the SJC Indianapolis for that year, using the April 2006 ban list and the card pool going up to Enemy of Justice, didn't really add much to these decks' viability. Now, the one thing it did add was Graceful Charity. This card is very, very strong because it draws you deep into your deck, filters out cards that you maybe don't need for your FTK, and can get you into your win con more quickly. So, Graceful being back is important, don't get me wrong. But, every game that you play with these sorts of decks, you'll either run into Graceful or you won't. Some games you won't, and so it won't really affect things that much. But when you do draw it, it is very impactful, to be fair. So I figured I'd just, show off Graceful in these decks, and I just go with the classic sort of Library FTK, where we're going into Reversal Quiz and Pendant to actually try and win the game here. Basically, the idea is that you draw through your entire deck, you're burning yourself down with things like Archfiend Oath and Toon World, and then once you get down to 500 or less life points, then you can go for Reversal Quiz, sending a black pendant, and then guessing the correct top card of your deck, and then your life points will swap with your opponent. They'll be below 500 life points, and then Black Pendant will kill them. And that's the idea of this deck. If you've never seen it before, you should hopefully be able to get a glimpse of the action when I dive into the replays that I got with this deck. But, I want to mention that for the side deck here, we do have a conversion side. I think when you're playing an FTK deck like this, you really do need a full conversion because otherwise, you're not really in the best spot if your opponent just brings in, ways to stop your FTK, or just if they've got any interruption at all if you're going second. So we side into a full sort of Reason Gate Turbo sort of strategy here. We got Stein, we got Democ, triple Fusilier, triple Crane, a Toon Cannon Soldier, because we don't really have the side deck space to actually take out the Toon package. So we keep in the Toon table of contents to go into a Cannon Soldier and then, go into Monster Gate or Reasoning, etc. So this is the package that we have here. Not necessarily the most optimal version of the Reason Gate side, but I think it's good enough for our purposes. And if you want to play this deck for yourself, you could potentially adjust this even further. But then we've got a full extra deck here for these Stein fusions. So we got Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, 4500 attack. Cyber Blader, the third effect can come up occasionally. Cyber End Dragon to deal piercing. Cyber Twin Dragon to get in twice. We've got Dark Ball to the Terrible to negate our opponent's monster effects. We've got Dark Blade the Dragon Knight to banish cards from their grave. Dragons to the Wicked Knight to get under floodgates. We've got Fiend Skull Dragon to stop targeting traps and flip effects. We've got Gatling Dragon to pop the board. We've got King Dragoon to prevent targeting. We've got Ojama King, just 3k body that can lock up our opponent's zones potentially. Reaper on the Nightmare to get in for 800 or just be, an unkillable body. We've got Ryu Senshi to negate spells that target it and also trap cards. We've got a Last Break from Another Planet here to stop summons, and we've got a Restrict to suck things up. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some replays and see how we actually play. Okay, we got a replay against Yes My Darkness, who is not necessarily a frequent guest in the channel, but they have appeared in the channel in the past, and it's always a pleasure to have them on. So we're going to dive in to the games here. We do win the rock, paper, scissors. That's the most important part of playing this deck, is making sure you go first. And hopefully we'll be able to pull off the FTK here. So we open, this is not like the best hand here in the world. We do have Toon Table if we want to thin down our deck a bit more. We also have Convulsion in case we want to set up for the Archfiend Oath play, like, reloading everything else back. And so what I ultimately decided to do here is I decided to set the Convulsion and then go for reload. I could have thinned out my deck with Toon Table if I wanted to, but I honestly value Toon Table a little bit more as being a combo piece in deck, because if we do draw into Royal Magical Library, then Toon Table content is basically a free draw, which is very, very important when we get to that stage of the game. So I choose not to thin out my deck a little bit here. You could argue that I should thin out my deck to make it more likely that I'll draw into a Royal Magical Library or an Archfiend Oath, given that I've already got the Convulsion here. But, I choose to do this. We'll see if I get rewarded or punished for that. So we're going to shuffle up again, and we draw into Reverse Quiz, Upstart, and Mallet. Okay, that's not the worst. We Upstart into a Library. Okay, here we go. And never punished for my plays. We go for the Library there, flip up the Convulsion there to flip over the deck. We see that we've got a Convulsion on top. We don't really want to draw that Convulsion. So what we're going to do here is we're going to Mallet. Shuffle back in the Reversal Quiz. I tell my opponent beforehand that I'm shuffling twice. I generally like to shuffle twice on Dueling Book whenever I have to shuffle. And by telling them I'm shuffling twice, this, sort of alleviates any accusations that I'm just shuffling because I didn't like what I saw on top of the deck. But we draw in to a Swords of Living Light here, and we are going to fire an upstart first before we go for the swords, because this gives us a little bit more information in case we want to use the feather to stack something on top. But luckily, we see a True Nade on top of the deck, so that's going to be very good for us. We're going to draw into that True Nade, and now we see a Tune Table on top of the deck. That's also very good for us. So we go for swords here. We go for the True Nade. That'll put the second counter on the library. And now we go for Convulsion. That flips over the deck, and then we draw into the Tune Table, and that's going to be really good for us. So this is, occasionally Dueling Book can be a bit weird with counters, but this is the first counter from the Tune Table there. We go for another Tune Table. And if we see a card on top of our deck that we do want to draw at any point, we can just activate the swords to get it there. So that's pretty nice as well. We could also potentially go for Feather to sort of stack something on top, but there aren't really too many spells I want right now in Grave. But we're going to add that Tomb World to hand and then get that draw with the library here. It's a little bit awkward here because I do have a couple options. I could potentially go Feather, stack True Nade. That's one counter. And then Tomb World Swords. That's two. So I draw into the True Nade. I activate the True Nade and then I draw 3 again. But that's a bit awkward. I mean, I can maneuver so that way I draw the top card of my deck instead of the bottom, because I don't really want to draw another Feather at this point in the game. But I feel like that is a bit awkward, and I still will have to draw through the Feather eventually, depending on what I get off the top of the deck. So what I actually do here is I do a bit of a weird choice. I go for Spell Reproduction, and I pitch the Feather in the Toon World to add a Tune Table back to hand, because I still have one Toon World left in deck. This will shuffle up my deck as well. And by activating the Toon World, then I'll be able to draw. And unfortunately, I draw into another Royal Magical Library. So, yeah, not much I can do there. Luckily, next turn, we do have the Archfiend Oath on top of the deck. And we know our opponent isn't drawing anything good because they're just drawing into a Sakuratsu Armor. So, if I do survive the following turn and they don't disrupt the board too much, then I am in a pretty decent spot because Oath can sort of get my game plan going. However, we do not have FTK here, which is quite unfortunate, and there are many things that our opponent can potentially do to sort of do things on the crackback, and one of them is definitely Snatch Steal. So they snatch up that Royal Magical Library. We will gain 1,000 from this, so we're less far away from, less close to dying, that is. But it's still not the best spot to be in. Luckily, we did draw this other Royal Magical Library. We can activate the Oath. Now we can pay 5, add the Reload to hand. Kind of have to activate Reload now, and also it's good because we do not want to draw into the Thunder Dragon. So I go for Reload now, shuffle in that Toon World, and draw into another Oath. That's really good for us. We're going to draw off that library, draw into a level limit. We're going to pay 5 to draw into that Thunder Dragon. This isn't the end of the game. Again, we can't quite FTK from this position. But we can sort of like wait a turn, I guess. We can't switch the library to defense. That was a mistake on my part. I didn't realize that I'd done that. But they're going to draw. They're going to go for MST here. And then they're going to flip up to Koichi, draw again, and summon out support to pop the library. So either way, the position of the library didn't really matter there. And either way, our opponent has a very powerful board setup now. Now, we do still have the Oaths, and we're drawing into pre-mat next turn. So we do still have some ways to win the game here, potentially. But it is a bit awkward because now our zones are a bit clogged. We can't just activate this level limit or something like that. We need a way to draw into True Nade. Now, Feather will give us a way to get True Nade because we activate Feather, pitch, or Thunder Dragon, put the True Nade on top of the deck, and then we can use that Oath again to add that True Nade to hand. And luckily, I think from this point, we should be in a good spot. If we activate Pre-Mat again, we get back another library. So we should be able to win here. But yeah, we just bring back that library with the Pre-Mat. We draw a card from that, go for Convulsion, because now we're drawing deeper into our deck from the bottom, which is what we want to be doing since we've got these Oaths online. And now we draw into the Reversal Quiz. We draw Dependent immediately after, so that's pretty nice. So now we're in a pretty decent spot to just win the game. We do need to find a way to actually, fix the top card of our deck because there is the slight chance that, it's the last library in the deck. So what we do here is we go for the Convulsion there to draw into the Feather. And then we're kind of just drawing here. We've got basically infinite draws at this point. So we're going to go for the Spell Repro, add back that True Nade, and then we're going to True Nade back the cards to hand, flip over the deck, go for Feather, and stack one of those spells. We're going to just stack Tune Table. Doesn't really matter at that point. Now we're going to go for Pendant here, and then go for Reversal Quiz, and that should be the end of the game because we can call a spell. Now, funnily enough, we didn't actually go through Graceful through this entire process, so it doesn't really show off, what the deck can really do in this format, but like, again, as I mentioned, you're not always going to draw Graceful, so it might not really impact the standing of the deck that much. Anyways, we side into the full conversion side into the Reading Gate package. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough space to actually take out all the oaths because we have to prioritize things like Convulsion of Nature, because that's really bad with the reasoning, obviously. We have to prioritize like Royal Magical Libraries, taking those out because we don't want those dead hits. We got to prioritize taking out the Thunder Dragons. So there are a variety of things that we need to take out of the deck before we get to the oaths. And by the time we get to the oaths, unfortunately, we just don't have the space to take them out. So we got to keep them in. They can occasionally come up with Feather because we do have Feather. We have Feather there largely to just, make some Monster Gate plays. But yeah, it can be a bit awkward. Luckily, we have Mount to shuffle that back. I keep the Fusilier because the deck is a bit light on monsters, and we want to have a potential monster to Monster Gate into. But we draw 2 more, so maybe I should have sent back the Fusilier as well. We're going to go for Gate here, sending a bunch, and we do not hit a monster yet. Oh, Crane. Crane is not bad. Okay, we're going to Crane, draw a card, draw into Stein. So that's pretty decent. We're going to go for Upstart here. Draw a card. We got Card Destruction. I don't think we can do this because we normal summoned the Fusilier. So this is a mistake on my part. I forgot that we had normal summoned. So that could have come up. They've got this Solemn here as well. And so, yeah, it could have definitely changed a lot, especially because we were drawing into Trunade. And actually, by summoning out the Stein that way, we could have potentially lost the game, potentially. So yeah, and then I forget that I normal summoned again here, so it's always good to keep that in mind, but luckily my opponent does catch it this time, but unfortunately that the first time we were not able to catch it, so that happens sometimes when you're playing on a manual simulator, but it is always good to keep in mind that, whatever you're playing these things, you always need to remember to actually, to keep track of all that stuff. And we draw pre-match, so we do go for just the Stein here to try and finish off the game. Or no, we go for Crane to draw. We don't go for Stein. Okay. I think that's probably better anyways, because they've got 4,500, so it's not the most likely thing in the world that we win through this position. But anyways, we're attacking in to the set with the Crane, and we're just summoning out the Toon Cannon Soldier just to be there. We can't kill them this turn with the effect, but we're just going to leave it there, so that way if they don't clear our board, then we're in a good spot. They go for Lightning Vortex, though, so that will clear our board, unfortunately. I wasn't expecting the Vortex in the deck, but I guess it makes sense because you wipe out the Royal Magical Libraries in case I've got Floodgates up, so it makes sense to bring that in. We're going to set one, pass back to them. We're going to set another, or not set another. We're just going to keep this in hand, pass back to them. But now we've got 2 spells in hand for this reproduction, which is kind of what I was setting up for there. I set it initially just to bait out like a Dust Tornado or something, clear up some of that unknown macro. But now we can go for a pre-mat here, and we can try to potentially win the game. There are other ways I could potentially done this. I could have gone for Reasoning instead, but given that they see a lot of our graveyard, they probably have a decent idea of what to call. But we're going to go for pre-mat here, go for the Stein, and then we're just going to go for the 5K, because I figure, given what we've seen, we have seen Sakuretsu Armor out of them, so that is a bit rough that they've kept that in. But they might have taken out some other ways to sort of stop aggressive pressure because they weren't expecting the smoke screen. And if they did, then this could potentially get through. So I'm just going to go for it. We're down to 10 cards in deck to their 27. If we don't have a way to actually win the game anytime soon, then, we're probably not winning this game. I could have waited for a Trunade, to be fair. But if I wait for Trunade, then that potentially puts us below the 5,000 life point threshold we need to do this sort of play. So I think, in all honesty, it's just better to, do this. But unfortunately, we do run into a Mirror Force, and that will be unfortunate. I could have also gone for, like, Dragoon instead to not win the game this turn, but, like, to potentially protect, again, things like Saku. But into the face of Mirror Force, it wouldn't have actually mattered anyways. So, but in hindsight, it probably would have been better just to go for the Dragoon play. But either way, they go for a Magician of Faith here, get back that Smashing Ground. Funny fact about Smashing Ground is that it also does not target, so that would have also stopped Dragoon. But either way, they're going to go for an Avarice here after summoning out Zaborg to pop itself. So very neat play to get the 5 cards in grave that they wanted, but it did work out for them. We're going to go for Crane. They go for TT there to pop the Crane. They set 1. We draw into Fusilli, which is not really the best. But we're just going to summon that out and just try and attack into the set. We know that they've got Smashing, but, we sort of got to play into Smashing eventually anyways. And they add back the Avarice with the Faith. Doesn't really do anything for them here since they're below 5 monsters in grave. And they're summon out a Cyber Dragon, summon out a Dekoichi, so that'll just be the end of the game there. Maybe if I had just set the Fusilier not attacked into the set, then Cider wouldn't have been able to come out and we would have survived that turn. But I don't think we were winning that game down to that little resources there. But luckily, going into the third game, we do get to go first. So we just, go back to the original deck, go back to the original FTK plan, and that should be good enough to hopefully win if we manage to pull it off. And we draw into Graceful, so that's really nice. We're going to go for the Upstart first, just gives us a little bit more information on what we've got and a little bit more options to discard with Graceful. We draw into Thunder Dragon, so I'm very glad I went for Upstart first. We pitched that Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand here, and now Graceful is going to be really good. So now we draw 3. It's basically free draw 3, and then pitch these 2 Thunder Dragons. We go for a Mallet here. Same active stuff. Again, I could have potentially gone through the tune tables, thinned out my deck a bit to make it more likely that I draw into the libraries. But I think, again, in all honesty, I want those libraries, not the libraries, the tune tables in the deck, so that way they can combo with the libraries. Unfortunately, this isn't the best here. We do draw into a Convulsion here, so we go for reload, spin everything back, and yeah, it's a bit awkward. We have to mallet down again because we're just not drawing the starters for our combo, but we do get a little bit reward here because we draw into a library, and we also have this Oath here, Trunade on top. So really, we're just the best FTK player who's ever done it. This is about as perfect a sequence of draws as I could have asked for. We draw to another Trunade off the top, and we know that the tune table is coming next. Unfortunately, there's no way to actually get that Oath, really. I mean, I could just prematurely Trunade here, and then, flip the deck over and then go for another Oath to get that Oath. But I think it's honestly better just to go for the tune table, get into the tune world. There's a chance I draw into another Oath anyways, but either way, this will give us another continuous spell to bounce back with Trunade. So there is an argument for just prematurely Trunading and doing that. I think that's also potentially fine, but I think this is the safer option, and it accrues more draws over time, I think. So we go for Tune World here. We draw into the Premat there. We go for Premat on the Thunder Dragon in Graveyard just to get that on field. And then we go for a Trunade here, sending everything back to hand here. We'll put the third counter, or no, the second counter on Library, I guess. But then we draw into the Reload, go for an Oath here, and we use the Oath to draw another card. We go for Reload here because I feel like there isn't really anything we need to keep here. We'd rather just draw into, our FTK at this point. Or just draws into ways to get to that more frequently. We draw into another Oath, and then we go for the Oath there to add the library. We go for another Oath, or no, we draw from the library. It can get very confusing in these replays to just, sort of commentate exactly whether we're drawing from Oath or from the library. But either way, I mean, it should be clear at this point that we're winning the game. Once you reach this point as the FTK deck, there are, you basically have to just misplay drastically to lose the game from this point. Because right now we're just accruing so many advantage. We're getting things back with Spell Repro. We've got Feathers left in deck to do things too. So we are just, on top of the world here. There's really no way we can really lose from this position. But we draw into the Feather. We go for the Oath. We're trying to set up a guaranteed sort of, hit off the Reversal Quiz stuff. But, seeing that Oath, seeing that library that is in deck. Oh, we haven't actually gone through the other library too. Oh, no, we have. So, yeah, 3 libraries, 3 Thunder Dragons, the little monsters that we play. So, actually, we can be guaranteed at knowing that, we get it with Reversal Quiz. So, we're going to go for Spell Repro here anyways, though, just to get back that Trunade. I guess just because we can. But, yeah, this is just going to be the end of the game. And we can just go for the Reversal Quiz after, setting up the Feather, or just, knowing that all the cards left in our deck are spells. Either one worked. But again, as I mentioned, I don't need to play, the best at this point in the game because we're just so far ahead that we just win the game immediately. So that's going to do it for this game, showing off the power of the Reversal Quiz FTK. Now, that being said, even though I did win this match, I think that this deck is not really that good in this format. Sure, you can win a game here or there. Conversion side, though, is a bit bad because, unfortunately, Reason Gate is not really the best, and you still have to keep some parts of the sort of initial game plan that you're playing here in the deck. So it's not really that good, in my opinion. In addition, if you go second, your opponent has so much disruption that they could play that really hampers your plans. So it's not really good into other decks as well. And I think this deck is also easily hated on in the side deck too. And if they know that you're going for a Reason Gate conversion, they can easily set and hate for that, as well as hate for just, the FTK deck as well, like Anti-Spell Fragrance or something if they really want to. So I don't really think this deck is that good. It also isn't the most consistent thing in the world. In the past for these sorts of videos, I've done a bunch of test hands, but people have generally said that they want to see more gameplay instead. But if I did a bunch of test stands with this, I assume it would turn out like the previous test stands that I've done with the deck, where it wasn't really the best. Maybe like 50%, 60% max for the consistency. And that unfortunately is not quite enough to do it in a broader tournament setting, I think. But if you want to just cheese games, like, just single games that you're playing with people and stuff, and you don't care about being very, very degenerate, you can play this deck. And it can be fun to do that, I guess. But in all honesty, I think that this sort of deck, if you enjoy playing it, you should probably just play it in like solo mode, right? And just do solitaire with it, because you're probably going to get a lot more enjoyment out of doing that than actively, making other people's lives miserable playing it against them. But what do you think about this deck? Do you think that I'm underselling it and that this victory proves that there is something here? Or do you think that I'm overselling it and that I just got a lucky victory here and this deck can't really win at all? Let me know down in the comments below. I look forward to discussing with you all as always. Also, let me know if there were any decks that I missed in Chaos Return format that you would like me to cover. I'm going to be moving into Stein format pretty soon, but I have been known to occasionally return to previous formats and dive into decks that I did not show off. So let me know down in the comments below if there are any that you would like to see. But that's going to do it for my main coverage of Chaos Return. Check back soon for the upcoming format. And I hope that you enjoyed, as always. If you like this sort of content, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 1,600 by the end of the month, and we're almost there. We're about 80 away, so I think we can make that by the end of the month. And also, if you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon linked in the description down below. Join the Patreon, get shout out in these videos. So big shout outs to Tyler Compton, GeoMyFS, Rinswin, Pork Chop, Brent Knocker, and Dump Trick. It means a lot that you all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. Also, if you want to join the Discord server, linked in the description down below, you'll be able to find games in Chaos Return format or any other format that I've featured on the channel. We also hold monthly tournaments and weekly locals events. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.